Any further ado, one of our great educational leaders, Deborah Meier.
There's all these struggles that go on sometimes in schools about the arts versus the academics. And I realized that from my viewpoint, life is an art and a craft. And the academic subjects are part of that craft and part of that artistry. They're not separate categories. And it's that imaginative aspect of art that is as important when we're studying science or literature or mathematics, or studying how to make the world a better place, or just studying to enjoy and please ourselves. It's a task. A friend of mine, Brian Morton, who's a novelist, said that art is a way of finding our true voice. That is a task that schools ideally perform. The thing is to touch someone, to make someone care. But to do so, we have to accept being, he said, a little mad. In a relatively short time, I fell in love with being a kindergarten teacher. It was intellectually, socially, and morally the most exciting moment in my life when I realized that I had a passion for the world of school and the world of... I had a story, which I don't have time to tell, but it's in one of the books I wrote about my friend Daryl, who, while we were doing a curriculum on living and non-living things, it was a New York City Board of Education curriculum, Daryl very proudly brought in a rock which he insisted was living. And he gave a profoundly convincing argument in favor of that, and won over the whole class. When I went home and called a friend of mine who was a scientist about it, he said, well, you know, he has a point. He's on the cutting edge of modern science. The next child, by the way, had a leaf she had torn off a tree. And I then said, looked at that leaf and thought, is it living or not living? And I decided that it was time to end our lesson and send the children off to play while I thought about that leaf. Why is it then that they come in like that, and then by the time they get to high school, it's hard to get them to speak up? How do we inspire kids to learn? That's their natural state. It's their natural state. They can't help but learn. They're learning, but not always what you want them to learn. But even in the most boring class, kids are learning something. How to handle boredom. They're having fantasies in their head, daydreams. They're looking at the kid next to them and they're passing notes back and forth. There's no way human beings cannot be reacting, experiencing the word. Experience happens all the time. The question is what we make of that experience and how we deepen that experience so it becomes, for some lucky people, a passion, a way of keeping themselves going in life. And my passion for classrooms and schools is somewhat frustrated these days because I don't spend my day in the school. I can't walk down the hall and hear beautiful choral music coming out of the music room. I can't have kids jumping up on me and giving me a hug. I can't walk into classrooms and engage in interesting conversation. And I miss it. What I spent the last 50 years trying to figure out is how we can create an institution with all those regulations he was referring to. And how can we creatively ignore those rules? You know, the time that my secretary came in to interrupted me in a meeting and she said, someone's on the phone and wants to know what our bell schedule is. And I said, we don't have one. And in fact, we didn't. One of the first things I did when I got into school was to to remove the bells, took the wire. And she went back and came back down and said, that won't do. She said she had to know the bell schedule. This went back and forth. And finally I said to her, okay, every hour on the hour. And completely satisfied. The person on the other end of the line, learning for the sheer joy of it. Can't be every moment of my life. But wouldn't it be wonderful if that was what we thought in 4 schools? And it's not utopian. It is, as those brave people 50 years ago in SDS said, Courtney Orange statement, I can imagine such a school. And while we had our ups and downs, for 40 years of creating schools that were communities, that did inspire kids, that did include their family, and that made teachers and adults feel more powerful, and made kids feel they could join a powerful community. Reminds me, it's hard to imagine, but it is doable. And I hope that whatever passion that you settle on, don't worry, I was in my mid-30s before I subbed in Chicago schools. You may have different passions at different periods in your life, but whatever they are, there's a way to make that passion work. And there's a way to make it useful. And there's a way to bring joy to you through it. So thank you.
Deborah and Geraldine have to leave us to go to Austin. But before they go, I'm promising you, Geraldine and Deborah, that we will invite you to many classrooms, to many schools, to have the joy of meeting and seeing the passion in the eyes of the kids. And you can look at the kids right next to you, right? And you can look at the kids who came in a little late, because we will invite you over and over and over again to help the kids to learn about your passions, and also for you to feel the passion that still exists in a lot of schools and among a lot of kids and among a lot of parents. We've just begun to fight, as somebody in our history has said, and we're not going to stop